Good morning. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to get your attention. Isn't this a great, beautiful day and a beautiful venue? We're excited to have you here, and thank you for attending this conference. I think you're going to find this a really fun and educational, exciting day. I'd first like to start out by thanking our sponsors and acknowledging them that have made this event possible. And I hope that you'll be able to meet some of these folks throughout the day. They include CytoNet, Musculoskeletal Transplant Foundation, CryoLife, the John A. Moran Eye Center, and of course, Beans and Brews Coffee House, RTI Biologics, Bridge to Life, Millionaire, who helps us get around the United States quickly, IIAM, and Transplant Connect. Let's please give them a round of applause for helping us. What I'd like to do here is just give you a whirlwind overview of transplant and where it began, where it's come from and begun. And so we can get my slides up here. What's most important is to realize this has been around a long time. It started in 4004 BC in Genesis. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. He slept and he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh, and yes, from man he made woman and brought her unto man. So this is where it all began. And then you probably didn't know that there was St. Anthony of Padua that reattached the foot of a young man who had deliberately mutilated himself, having been told off for kicking his mother. That was in 1200 BC. And then some warriors, a Chinese doctor reputedly swaps the hearts of two warriors back in 500 BC. So things have been going on. And then things started getting corrected with, in 1832, we had problems of people after thinking they're dead to come alive again and different things. So they finally passed the Anatomy Act, which made sure that things were handled correctly. But really it did begin starting in 1905. I believe it was in 1905 was our first successful cornea transplant. Things were started with an attempt in 1936, the first human-to-human transplant. He tried a kidney transplant, but it didn't work. Then in 1940, we started to understand a little bit about the problem of rejection in that process. Then in 1954, we had our very first successful kidney transplant. This was done in Boston between two identical twins. What's interesting is you may have noticed and picked up in the news this last year, Ronald Herrick, age 79, was the donor, and he just passed away. And that was in the news. He donated to his brother. They're twins at each of them at age 23. The first lung transplant was in 1963. First successful pancreas in 66. First liver transplant, 67. First human heart transplant in 67. Some of you may remember that. And then heart-lung transplant in 1981. And then this is really where things changed. The surgical techniques were being worked out, but the immunosuppression and rejection was the problem. And in 1983, cyclosporin was approved, and the first immunosuppression began, and that's where really transplant took off. In 1988, the first small bowel transplant was performed. Our first successful living donor liver transplant in '89. And now, more recently, in 1998, we've had our first hand transplant. And those are really taking off. I've done a number of presentations and been able to meet a number of people that have had hand transplants. And they're beginning to have programs started both in California and Arizona. So we'll be seeing many more people getting hand transplants. And again, first face transplant was in 2005, and we've had a number of those now here in the United States. What we're going to talk a little bit about today is we just reviewed the science a little bit of transplantation, But really the underlying challenge after solving the immunosuppression was we had the science, we had the techniques to do transplantation, but there was one thing that we're short of, and that is donors. And starting in 2003, we really began the science of donation. And we are excited to be able to review a lot of what's happened in the last 10 years, 9-10 years over the science of donation, and pull that together for you here today. What I can promise you today is that you will learn something today that you will be able to take advantage of and do and implement in your area that will make the difference in improving and saving lives. It's now my pleasure to introduce our moderator for the day, Helen Bottenfield. Helen, we are really excited. I am really excited. Helen has led this national effort over the last 9 or 10 years in bringing the science of donation across the United States by running some of the national collaboratives, and is now the executive director of the Alliance for Organ Donation and Transplantation, which coordinates at the national level improving the science of donation and transplantation across the United States. She has come all the way from Virginia Beach, Virginia, so let's welcome Helen Bottenfield for our moderator.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you so very much. I just want to point out, Tracy, before you go, that the part you left out was that Adam was asleep on the sofa while Eve was cooking dinner. Just to set the record straight, okay? Right. Made woman for man. Right. And the rest of us know what the real scoop is, right?